Hi, my name is Fernando Cremer. I'm a solutions engineer at Replicated. Thank you so much for stopping by our virtual booth here at KubeCon EU 22. In this session, I'd like to talk about how Replicated helps software vendors support customers that have Airgap environments. So let's get started. First, let's go over what we're going to cover today. So first, we're going to define what an Airgap environment is to make sure we're all on the same page. We're going to talk about the challenges of deploying into your customers' Airgap environments, how Replicated helps you in those scenarios, and with a demo that will explain it all. So let's define an Airgap environment. An Airgap environment is an environment that doesn't have access to the outside world. So it's truly in Airgap mode, or airplane mode is what I've heard as well. This means that it has no access to any servers to phone home or anything like that. So if you have to run your software in those environments, so you have customers that have Airgap environments and they want to deploy your software and run your software in that environments, you're going to have a lot of challenges. And the first one is because you don't have access to the environment. So when it comes to deploying the application, right, you're probably going to have to hand it to somebody else, somebody at your customer, an admin, to install the application. So you must provide them with everything that is needed. You will not be able to, oh, sorry, I forgot this little thing. Here it is. Or, oh, we are using Postgres open source and we're downloading it from its public registry. You need to make sure you have everything. Next, when things go wrong, and they will, software, has bugs. It's hard to troubleshoot things because you don't have that direct access to the environment. You cannot run your diagnostic tooling on it. You cannot sit in front of the terminal and run commands until you figure out what the issue is. No, you have to have your customer do that. Run this command, collect this file. It takes a long time to remediate the issues when it's Airgap. Lastly, it's also hard to manage entitlements and updates. If you have a subscription business and you have an expiration date, when it's an Airgap environment, it's hard to enforce an action when the expiration hits and the customer hasn't renewed. So how does Replicated help you support your customers that have Airgap environments? Well, Replicated allows you to build an Airgap bundle. And this Airgap bundle will contain everything that is needed to install your application. This includes the images. Replicated also allows you to configure pre-flight checks. We mentioned that you don't have access to the environment, so you cannot check it to make sure it's been provisioned correctly. You can provide your customer instructions, system requirements, but they may not always follow them or may follow them in good faith, but still not provision things correctly. So a pre-flight check ensures that everything is set up correctly, the environment is ready to support your application. What pre-flights do, they increase the success rate of the installation of your software. As you want your customers to be successful, right? You want your customers to successfully install your software and get value right away. Pre-flight checks allow you to do that. Next, we talk about the support challenges when you're in airplane mode, right? You don't have access to the environment. Replicated allows you to configure support bundles. And in these support bundles, you can codify collectors and analyzers. So that way, when your customer reports a problem, all they have to do is click one button. And that button will collect everything, run commands, provide results to your end user. And it also creates a support bundle that they could send to you. And then you can analyze it some more. And thus reduces the remediation time by quite a bit. And also, Replicated provides a licensing system that allows you to manage entitlements. When your customers install with Replicated, they must provide a license. And this license can include an expiration date. That expiration date can then either prevent future updates, or you may want to maybe be more conservative and maybe write code to shut down your application. But that will be up to you. All the license information is available to your application at runtime. So now what we're going to do is kind of get into a diagram here to kind of explain you how we do it. So in this diagram, you see your team. And your team is either going to write manifests and is going to be pushing images. So the manifest will be included in your release. And by the way, this could also be Helm charts. And they're going to write those and promote into our vendor portal, which I'll demo in a moment. But at the same time, you're also pushing images. So you're writing your source code, you're building your images and pushing them into your private registry. Our Airgap builder will pull your manifest, your Helm charts that you put in vendor portal, but also is able to pull your images once you configure it. So this allows it to create a bundle that will contain your images and your deployment manifest and Helm charts. And that will give you a bundle that then you can will put in a private S3 bucket, and then you can provide to your customers in various ways. And I'll cover that as well in the demo. So when you deploy it, so we provide two ways to deploy. One is what we call into an existing Kubernetes cluster. So in this case, you provide your customer with three things, right? You provide them with a license file that will have the expiration date and so forth. You provide an Airgap bundle. When it's in an existing cluster, it will have our admin console and its images that allows you to manage the deployment of the application. And then you'll provide a bundle that contains your images. So the first bundle, the COTS Airgap bundle, will contain our tooling. The second, the application bundle, that will contain your application, your manifests, Helm charts, and your images. But you'll provide these three things to your customer: the application bundle, the license file, and the COTS bundle. If your customer doesn't have Kubernetes, we can install Kubernetes on a Linux VM or Linux host. In this case, it's still three bundles. The first one, the COTS bundle, will also include, in this case, Kubernetes. But you'll still need the application bundle that will stay separate, and then you'll have the license file. So in this case, you would go into a primary VM, a primary host, deploy the COTS bundle to install Kubernetes in our admin console, and then as you can see, you can bring other VMs as well. So we do support, with Replicated, installing Kubernetes into multiple nodes. But this is using our curl.sh project. So if you have a chance, visit curl.sh. That is what allows you to create a Kubernetes installer for a VM. So let's go into the demo. So what you see on your screen is the vendor portal. And the vendor portal is the tooling that allows you to package your application. So my demo application here is Sentry. It's an open source application. And here we're supposing it's Sentry Professional. So we call it Sentry Pro. So I'm in my channel screen where this allows me to manage who has access to which release. So in Replicated, you create releases. And these releases, you promote them to a channel. So here I'm in the stable channel, which is where my enterprise customers download their software. So here I'm going to go to release history and see my releases that I've been pushing to this channel. So here you can see I have several versions, and you can see I've been building an Airgap bundle from my application. This is that application bundle that we saw in the diagram earlier. And if you want to take a deeper look at what my release is made out of, it's made out of Kubernetes manifests. So all the ones that I'm clicking on right now below the line are the manifests needed to deploy my application. Again, in this case, my demo application is Sentry. This would be the manifest for your application, right? Or your Helm charts. The ones that I'm clicking above the line are manifests that you use to configure replicated features. So you create your release. Usually you have that in source code. You use our command line interface and promote it to a channel. In the channel, you also can have a Kubernetes installer. And the Kubernetes installer is, again, when we want to install Kubernetes. At the bottom of the channel, you see the installation commands. So depending for existing cluster, when the customer already has Kubernetes, or embedded cluster when the customer does not. When the customer doesn't have Kubernetes, you can define the Kubernetes installer. And again, this leverages our curl.sh project. That's a mouthful, curl.sh. And there you can define your Kubernetes installer. And as you can define, for example, the container runtime, the version of Kubernetes. We have beta support for K3s and RKA2. So please do check it out. Now let's go over to customers. And customers is how you manage licenses with Replicated. So here I have a sample customer called some big financial company. And here you can specify expiration date, the type of license, which channel to pull updates from. You can also have some toggling of our features, for example, Airgap. And also we have custom fields. And custom fields allow you to define custom entitlement for your application. So here, there's a download portal that we can provide to our customers. So this is one way that we can download the Airgap assets that we need. So if you go back to the diagram that we had earlier, there were three things that our customer needs to download. And those can be made available in this portal. And as you can see, it has my application name and logo. And then my customer can select the installation method, and we can provide instructions on how to do this, right? But first, I'm going to download the license. Next, I'm going to download the Airgap bundle. So the application bundle is right here. So I'm going to download the application bundle. Now for this demo, I'm going to install it into an existing cluster. So I need to download the bundle that contains the admin console, but I'm also going to download the cut CLI. Now the CLI is something that allows me to run this installation from kubecontrol, but the one that you have here is for Linux systems. I'm actually running this on a Mac, so I'm going to switch over to our repository. So you go to replicated HQ/COTS, and then under releases, you can find the latest version here. So here under version 1.70, which is the latest version as of this recording, you can see under the assets are available there for that version. So in this case, I want the Darwin cut CLI, so I'm going to download that one. So I'm going to use the CLI to install COTS, and then that will give me the admin console that then I'll be able to deploy the application. So here on my terminal, here are all the files I've just downloaded. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a directory to put the CLI on, the COTS CLI. So this is, again, a kubecontrol plugin. So I'm going to move the tarball here. Okay, now I'm going to untar it. Now I'm going to rename the binary COTS to kubecontrol-COTS. I just realized I misspelled it. Yeah, sorry. kubecontrol-COTS. Yes. Okay, great. Now I'm going to move it into somewhere in my path, and I'm going to need sudo for this. So I'm going to use sudo and put it under user. I'm going to use user local bin. So hit enter, password, and should be good to go. If you want to test that your CLI is set up correctly, you can run kubecontrol COTS version. Here I'm just going to make sure the file is there. And it's there. Okay, so I just want to make sure we had copied there. And again, let's clear this screen so we can start over. So now what we're going to do, the first step we need to do is to push the images for that admin console. So here's that command. And let's go over it in some detail, what's over here. So let me get my cursor here. Actually, you know what? I can probably just maybe select all. We'll see. So I'll use my mouse for this. So the admin console is the first command that we use with COTS. So kubecontrol COTS admin console. And then it has a sub command called push images. So the push images is right here is the command that we're going to use to push the images for the admin console to the customer registry. So again, this is your customer. They're running this in their environment. They downloaded all those assets. They installed the COTS CLI per the instructions given to your customer. And now your customer is running this command to push the admin console images into their own registry. So they're providing the registry address, the username and password. In this demo, I'm using GCR, which uses a JSON key. So that's why I use that username and the contents of a JSON file as my password. So what it's doing is extracting the tarball that I had, and now it's pushing all those images for the admin console into the registry. So this will take a few moments, but it's moving on nicely. A lot of this will depend on the connection from the client to the cluster, right? It's a Airgap environment. I'm running this actually on the cloud, semi Airgap, I guess, but all the functionality is the same. But how long this will take, obviously, will depend on various factors. It's almost finished, folks. Just a few more moments here. So in case I wasn't clear, the admin console, which is what we're deploying images for right now, it's the console that your admin, your customer, will use to deploy your application. In my demo will be Sentry, but also do updates, troubleshoot issues, and things like that. So it's an admin console that will allow them to be more successful with your application, I would say. Okay, so it looks like we're done. So we pushed the images, so let's clear again. And now let's do an install. So this install command, and yes, I wrote it before. I wanted to be ready. Contains kind of the same information as the other one, except now we're using an install command. We're using what we call the application slug, which in my case is Sentry-Pro. Then the namespace that I want this to be deployed to, I'm just going to use the same name. And then the registry information. So as you can see again, it's GCR. The username is JSON key because I'm using that JSON key authentication and piping the results of the key JSON file as my password. Okay, so let's hit enter. Confirming the namespace is going to create the namespace, and now it's going to deploy the admin console. So the admin console does have a data store. It's going to prompt me for a password here. We'll enter my password here, which is rep. Okay, once, yeah. Oh, when it's too long, it does glitch like this. So now it's actually going to deploy the application. The admin console, I'm sorry. Your application hasn't been deployed yet. It's now deploying the admin console. It's getting ready. And soon we'll be given an address to go to. It's going to do a port forward to port 8080. And then we're going to use this to then browse over to that address. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the address here, and I'm going to go to my web browser, and we'll pull this up. Enter. So the first step is I'm going to log in with the password that I provided. So we'll enter that. Once I log in, I will be prompted for the license. So this is the license that we created in the vendor portal, right? There's some big financial company license. So I will drag it and drop it over here. I will upload the license. Then the next step is it will prompt me to upload the Airgun bundle. So remember, we had the application bundle is a separate bundle, right? So now we're going to upload the application bundle. This will be your application bundle. In my demo here is a Sentry bundle. So notice that it picked up the registry fields from my command line. So it filled out the registry. I didn't enter that, folks. It all picked it up from the commands I passed in the command line. So I click on Upload Airgap, and now what it's going to do is it's going to take the Airgap bundle, which as you can see is several megabytes in size, and it's going to upload it to the admin console to get the manifest or Helm charts that would be in there, and then push all the images into the registry. Now, one thing we haven't talked too much about is in this video, I'm using the UI to perform the installation. You can also perform this in what we call headless mode. So the cause install command that I provided earlier on the terminal, I could have also added an option for the license, an option for all the things that we're going to go through here, and it could be run automated in that way. So now it's reading the images from the bundle, and now it's going to go ahead and push the images. So my application again is Sentry Pro. It has just 4 images. It looks like it's about to be done. Here's the last one. And once it finishes pushing the images, then it proceeds with the installation wizard, if you will. It's kind of like a wizard, right? You click next, 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 and so forth. So this is the configuration screen. So this is a screen that you get to configure how it's going to look. This is behind this is a manifest, it's a YAML. So you get to configure the various fields that you may want. The idea here is that you want your user to enter information that is needed to deploy the app. Maybe they want to provide information of where their database is stored, for example, versus you deploying it, or a default username or password. So if we go back to the vendor portal, you're going to see that in the vendor portal, in my release, so if you recall my releases for this application, so let's go back to release history and open up the release we just deployed. You'll see in here that there's a file called config.yaml. Let me close this. And the config.yaml, which is right here, you can see here's where I've defined those fields. But you can see it's our own API, and we provide you with field types that you can define. So you use them how you see fit. But you can have text fields, password fields, binary fields, etc. So in this case, this is how that YAM manifest is being rendered. Once you provide that information and click on next, it'll run the pre-flights, and the pre-flights leverage our troubleshoot.sh project, which I'm showing you right now here. So troubleshoot allows you to define pre-flight checks. So here it shows you examples for maybe a cluster check, a node check, but it provides you a set of collectors, redactors, and analyzers. For pre-flight checks, redactors are really powerful, especially when you're going into an environment that you have no control, no access to. You want to make sure that the environment is provisioned correctly, that it has the right runtime environment, for example. It has the right versions for things. So running pre-flights ensures that the environment is ready for deploy your application. If we go back to the admin console, we see that the pre-flights have finished and it's providing me with several outputs. This is a demo, so obviously I have several things failing. You could define some of these as strict, and when an analyzer is strict and it fails, it will prevent from doing what I'm doing right now, which is I'm just going to continue even though there's issues. If there's some issues that you know will prevent your application from being successfully deployed, you can make them strict. That way the customer has no way to install your application. So from here, I can see that my application is now being deployed. I can look at the logs of everything that was the standard out when we did the apply. So now it's just a matter of deploying the pods. Notice here that I could have a link. So if there's a new version of the application, you will provide a new application bundle to your customer and they will load up there. If there's an update to the license file, you can also provide that to your end customer and they can upload it through this UI as well. So this UI allows them to upload license updates and version updates. And as they consume more updates from you, all of those will be listed here. And the config is the same config screen that we saw earlier. You can change this information at any time. And troubleshoot is where you can generate support bundles. So we mentioned earlier the challenging of supporting environments that you don't have access to. So I just click on that button, and what that button does is it will run all the collectors and analyzers that we define in the release under the support bundle YAML. So as you can see here, I have several collectors defined, and then down here I have some analyzers defined. So when I clicked on that button, it's running all those collectors, all those analyzers, and again, this leverages that same troubleshoot framework open source project that I mentioned earlier. Now in a support bundle, it's more about collecting. So here's where you're going to run some of the collectors that we have listed here. So for example, you may want to copy files, right? You may want to grab a file from a container or a folder. You may want to execute a command, run a command and get the output and see what the output is. Common one, you may want to get logs, right? So you can either get the pods from your logs, get the logs from your pods, or you can run your own pod. There's a lot of options here. The idea is that you're collecting all the information at once, right? Instead of going the back and forth game of run this command, run this other command, give me this file, right? You're getting all that at once in a single click. So that way there's no back and forth with your customer, and it really decreases that frustration that happens when your customer just gets frustrated because you keep asking for information and you're not resolving the issue. So your customer will click on that button and they will see output similar to this. Now again, this is a demo, so it's over dramatized and there's a lot of failures here. But the key here is that your customer can see what's going on. They can click on any of these links here. This is a pod, a job that is failing, so it's showing us all the various events and the failings and the definition of the pod as well. So as you can see, it's a kind of job. So this will allow your customer to be more self-sufficient and be able to get down to solving the issue. Now they of course can download the bundle and then send it to you. Then you can help them figure out what the problem is. So hopefully I was able to show you how Replicated is able to support you with customer Airgap environments. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at replicated.com. We have community.replicated.com, and we have a YouTube channel where we have several videos. Thank you for watching and have fun at KubeCon. Goodbye.